Hi everyone. I am here with Chuck Young, and he wrote a book actually. He is an author on Thomas Collins and from the Civil War, and he's here to tell us a little bit about him. Thank you so much for taking your time out. What can you tell us about this historic figure?
The name of the book, first off, is The Soldier's Wealth is Honor. And it's about a Medal of Honor winner from the Civil War named Thomas D. Collins. Tom enlisted, first he was born in Sullivan County, New York in 1847. He enlisted in the Army with the 101st New York in November of 1861. And he was only 15 years old when he enlisted. He enlisted and lied about his age, but he got away with it because he wrote on a slip of paper the age 16 and put it in his shoe and stood on it. So when they asked him, "Are you over 16?" he said, "Yes," and he wouldn't be lying about it. So he ended up enlisting in the 101st New York. But when he got down to Washington, D.C., where all the troops were sent during the war and then distributed from there, he was he thought the war was only going to last a short period of time. So in the interim, they sent them down there and they dug trenches and did a lot of physical labor, guard duty, that sort of thing. And he was very disenchanted about what his military life was about. So anyway, he just got tired of it, and the older guys that were in the regiment with him said, "Why don't you just go home? You're not old enough anyway." So he says, "Okay," so he went home. So he ended up being listed as a deserter in the 101st New York. When that happened, he was home, and he was kind of shunned by the neighborhood because of those being a deserter, and he never realized that he was a deserter. So when the 143rd New York, which was his home county's regiment, which was Sullivan County, New York, when that regiment was formed in the summer of 1862, which was the 143rd New York, Tom re-enlisted in there, and he was still listed as a deserter in the 101st, but he enlisted in the 143rd, and he went on to be a mounted courier and a scout with the 143rd, and he served under many famous generals like Sheridan, Thomas.
Oh, wow.
And those. And he was wounded 6 times during the war, and he had 5 horses shot out from under him, and he had 1 horse that he lost because it ate hardtack, the type of bread that the soldiers ate.
Yep.
Anyway, the horse died of that. Probably the most inheroic thing that he did during the war was the capture of a battle flag at the Confederate battle flag at the Battle of Resaca, Georgia.
Okay.
Back then, if you captured a Confederate battle flag, you won the Medal of Honor for it. So that's actually what he won the Medal of Honor for. But he went on to do many things that were way over and above what a soldier normally would do. Anyway, he wasn't, I don't know how much you want to enumerate on this.
You keep going.
But at the Battle of Resaca, Georgia, the 143rd New York was detached with the 82nd Ohio.
Okay.
And the battle lines had moved to the rear, and they were left on this big knob, and they were surrounded by Confederates. And Thomas Collins was a dispatch rider at the time and a courier. So at that time, no one knew what the disposition of these 2 units were, and they thought they were all captured or dead. And the general got a hold of Thomas Collins, and he said, "I want you to ride out and find what the disposition of these 2 units are." So he put some ammunition on his horse, went out, and found the 2 units were semi-surrounded on this knob outside of Resaca, Georgia.
Okay.
And he brought them ammunition. The lieutenant colonel that was in charge at the time said that he needed ammunition and that Tom's orders to him were to retreat. He says, we're not going to retreat because we've held this position all day. So we want would you take a message back to the general and tell him to move the battle lines forward to us rather than us retreat? And that's what happened. He took the message back.
Wow.
And they brought the battle lines up to where the 143rd and the 82nd Ohio were. And
wow.
He rode through shot and shell
Yep.
to bring ammunition to his men to save the regiment.
So he was a hero.
And that was part of the things. There were
Yeah.
other things that he did. He was a spy for a while.
Wow.
And he captured a lady spy from the other side.
Okay.
Just to give you a
Yeah.
brief overview of what he did. There was one time he was writing messages back and forth between the lines, and he heard a noise, a woman screaming in the brush, and he rode back in the brush to see what was going on, and he found a Union cavalryman assaulting this woman in the woods.
Okay.
So he broke it up, of course, when he
Yep.
rode up, and he asked the woman if she was okay.
Yeah.
She just said, "Yeah, I'm fine." And then the other cavalryman that was assaulting the woman, he rode away. Well, Thomas got on his horse and he rode the guy down. It took him about 2 hours, but he rode him down. He knocked him off his horse, tied him up, and brought him back for court-martial.
Wow.
And he said that we were in the South to fight a war, not to assault women. He said my mother was a woman.
Wow.
And we don't do those type of things. And that's the type of character he had.
Absolutely amazing.
But later on, there was just many things that he
Right.
did. But probably one of the most courageous was he, at the end of the war, toward the end of the war, well, there was one at Bentonville that I have to tell you about.
Okay.
It was kind of a unique situation that took place. Thomas was going up and down the battle lines and delivering messages on the Union line. And he was on foot at the time, and his horse was tied up in the back.
Okay.
So he's sending these dispatches and one thing and another amongst the company commanders. And they were behind a breastworks.
Okay.
Anyway, there was a wounded man that was in the center of the field between the two Confederate lines and the Union lines. And that man had been hit in the side of the head, and he would fall down, get up, fall down, get up. So the unit that he was with had retreated back to the breastworks and left him there. When Thomas Collins came up, he asked the company commander, "Are you going to go out and retrieve that wounded man?" And the company commander said, "No, I'm not going to sacrifice any of my good men,
Right.
well men, to save a man that's injured."
Right.
So Thomas said, "Well, then if you're not going to go, I will ask for volunteers and I'll go get him myself." So he couldn't get any volunteers from the man's own company. So he said, "I'll go get him myself." So he went back, got his horse, jumped the breastworks with his horse, rode out to the wounded man, jumped off his horse. And when he cleared the breastworks on the Union side, they stopped firing. And the Confederates, in confusion, saw him ride out, and they stopped firing. So now he's standing in the middle of the field having a conversation with the Confederate commander, asking him permission to retrieve this wounded man off the field. And the Confederate commander said, "You're a very brave Yank." And he told him, "Yes, you have my permission. We will hold our fire until you get him back to safety."
Oh my gosh.
And he put the man on a horse, took him back. This was at Bentonville, North Carolina.
Okay.
And back to the lines, through the lines, got the man to safety. And of course, the man's unit that he was with were climbing over one another, trying to shake his hand and everything. Anyway, the Confederate commander yelled to him and he said, "Okay, Thomas Collins, we need you to go to the rear now because we don't want to hit such a brave man, and we're going to be opening fire soon." So he sent him to the rear, and then he opened fire, and the battle resumed.
Oh my gosh.
And that was in 1865.
1865.
Just about the end of the war. It was March of 1865.
Incredible.
During the Battle of Bentonville. Then right after that, he was credited with saving a lot of Union lives there was a battle about to commence in Raleigh, North Carolina. And this was just after the Battle of Bentonville, where he saved this guy. He was, the Union generals, Sherman to be exact, had given, after the Battle of Bentonville, he came across Johnson, the Confederate commander Johnson, and they had made a deal to stop the war.
Okay.
Stop that part of the war.
Okay.
Because this was after, or just after Lee had surrendered.
Okay.
In Appomattox. This was still fighting on the other side. Johnson's was another army in the Confederacy. Anyway, they Sherman made a deal with Johnston to give his men their arms and all that sort of thing, and Grant did not like that situation, or those surrender terms.
Okay.
So Grant ordered them to start hostilities again until, new terms could be drawn up. So anyway, they were going to have this big battle near Raleigh, North Carolina, and about 16 miles away was the headquarters that Thomas Collins was attached to. Well, they found out that new surrender terms were accepted by all, and this battle was going to go off, and they didn't know anything about the surrender. So the general asked Tom Collins if he could make that ride and get there as quickly as he could, and he made that 16-mile ride in like an hour and 15 minutes or something.
Oh,
really
my gosh.
Crazy time. And this is through wilderness.
Yeah.
Anyway, he got there just as they were blowing the advance, and he stopped that battle.
Wow.
And an untold amount of Americans on both sides probably would have been killed in that battle.
That's incredible.
Yep. And then he lived to 1932.
Okay.
And he died in Middletown, New York, and he's buried there today. But he won the Medal of Honor.
That's incredible, because we don't hear much about him. And what is the name of your book again?
The name of the book is The Soldier's Wealth is Honor.
The Soldier's Wealth, okay.
And I got that name from a poem from Thomas Collins' memoirs that some of his relatives wrote. He wrote some poems and literature after the war. And at the end of his memoirs, that was the last sentence of the last thing he wrote in his memoirs, was The Soldier's Wealth is Honor. And I said that'd be a great title for the book.
Oh my gosh. So all of you listening, read the book. You got to get the book. This is incredible. This is a hero. And thank you for bringing Thomas Collins alive to us. Thank you so much for taking your time with me. Thank you.
Thank you.